Hello, everyone, and welcome to the St. Patrick's edition of Ways and Means. If everyone could stand, and we'll take care of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to remind folks that this meeting is being held in full accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. There are a variety of ways to join the meeting. One is through the link on the WebEx link on the town website, or you can join by phone. The number is 408-418-9388. And the access code is 179-853-9460. Thank you. Is there anyone here who has something they want to bring in front of public participation? It doesn't look that way. Okay, so moving on to FY22 budget reviews, we'll start with the planning board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning board is coming in with a budget of $369,636 for a 2.63% increase. The increase contractually noted pay increases. On side notes, the subcommittee talked with the planning folks about if they still have enough money doing research and preparation on making sure the town is set on the 5G infrastructure, and we also talking about future needs of the department. That the town may indeed need more help in terms of enforcing the requirements of permits issued by the planning board. To the budget itself is cut and dry. Tom and I put it 2-0 to support.
Thanks, Brad. Kristen, welcome. Would you mind introducing yourself to the audience in case folks are watching on BCAT?
Sure, Kristen Kasner, Planning Director. Do you want me to make any comments?
Please.
I think we had a good meeting. Our budget is pretty much level. We have a few step increases, but otherwise it's a very small percent increase. One of the things that did come up that both Brad and Tom asked me to talk about was, I know you guys have been worried about, building permits being down this year, but I will say that the planning department has really been a bellwether to what's happening in the building department after, whether it's 6, 8, 12 months after we go through permitting as to when they start. Sometimes it's even quicker than that if everyone has their ducks in a row. But this past year, we actually, and I can share with you some specific numbers, but this past year, 2020, well, actually, I'll go back in time a little bit. In 2015, we took in about 56,000, 16, 67,000, 2017, 54, 2018, 80, 2019, 70,000, and 2020, $83,000 in permit fees. We've been really busy in permitting over the last year, which is a very good sign for us. I want to thank all of you and all of town meeting and the planning board for supporting a lot of the more recent changes, especially the move toward life science. It's really been paying off. We've been doing a lot of permitting, a lot of life science, a lot of advanced manufacturing to kind of continue to diversify the commercial space we have in town. As you guys all know, we're heavily over traditional office. We have been doing a lot of transition. A lot of that has required a lot of permits through our department. And although I think things are slow, 2019, 2020, things, everything slowed down quite a bit. But when things come back, the amount of permits that people are sitting on waiting to really pull the trigger are many. So I think that we will see a rebound with the building department, which I was talking to Mark Dupel about today. So, so all of those are signs that point in a good direction. We did do better in 2020 than 19. It was actually one of our best years over the last 5 years. So, so anyway, it's just wanted to make sure that we communicated that. And again, thank you for your support in our department.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion questions?
Steve?
Go ahead, Frank.
Chris, can you, going through that, you sort of whipped through that there's probably an abundance of traditional office space still. Is in the permitting activities that you know of, or that you're free to comment on, do you know if any of that office space is already repurposed?
You know, probably more in conversation than anything specific, but we've been reaching out to our property owners to really understand the landscape out there. I mean, obviously there are a lot of people not at work, looking at where lease terms will expire. For instance, in the district, we spoke with National Development. They're really not worried until about 2024, where some of their bigger leases are coming up. And just conversations that we've had as to what can we do to help them diversify their space so they can offer it for the infill of you know, that everyone's kind of expecting there might be a little shrinkage. I haven't heard a lot of kind of just you know, pack up the entire suitcase and move out, but definitely shrinkage in space. And we're just working with them to try to figure out how to backfill that space. One of the things that we also need to understand, especially for life science and manufacturing, and like we have a pretty big sector of medical device and 3D printing, and stuff like that. That there are certain space needs that, you know, some of our older buildings that were built in the 80s, early 90s might not meet. So, you know, that's just trying to figure out what are the realistic alternatives for diversifying space. Um, what else was I going to say? Oh, and then, you know, we do still have a really strong software security base in Burlington, since Sun Microsystems and Oracle migrated out here. So that's been very good. And I know you guys have heard the Everbridge story, where Everbridge helped West Virginia get everyone vaccinated. Those types of companies are still here. They do have a lot of remote employees. They still have space, but there is a value to clustering some of these companies together, kind of for the brain trust of knowledge, whether or not everybody's in the building, to still hold space, and especially in Burlington. And we're finding people want to be still in Burlington and have an office in Burlington, and we're just trying to make that still a cool thing to for people to say. So, but
So-
yeah, we expect shrinkage, but we're just working with people to figure out what are different alternatives, and is that zoning correct for the alternatives that
Yeah.
they're seeking.
Can you comment on Class A versus not Class A office utilization? Your expectation.
Um, so our Class A space is actually has held up pretty well. Um, for instance, like 25 Burlington Mall Road has just been a building that's really fully leased all the time. People like that building. I don't know. It's you know, since I'm actually surprised it's as hot as it is, because there's not really an amenity right there. But anyway, people like 25 Mall Road.
Or is it
That
Class A
building
space,
has
or
been
is it?
full, but it's all traditional office space, you know.
Yeah.
So, but actually, the Class B buildings are actually lending themselves to all those alternatives pretty well if they are constructed in a way that can be repurposed. I mean, we have some that work and some that do not work. If you remember the building behind Hertz on it's on the Summit Drive now, but Wheeler Road originally, the 128, anyway. That building is an old building. It was like 1970s. It has like 11-foot ceilings. I mean, the Gutierrez bought it. They were lucky they could repurpose it. They put in a temporary or a work bar kind of space, as well as an educational use that worked. But that building, it's hard to reuse those types of buildings. So, I mean, we have what can we redo, reuse, and what do we really have to think of incentivizing new construction?
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Any other questions? Chair will entertain a motion.
Before you do that, this is Barbara LaRue.
Oh,
Could I just make a quick comment?
sure.
Thank you. I just wanted to expand just a bit on what Todd alluded to, that at some point, we're probably going to come back to the town and ask for a new position, not necessarily a position in the planning department so much, but we do believe that the building department is extremely overworked, and because of that, it's extremely difficult for them to keep up with the infractions that occur frequently. And so they're really great about making sure they take care of all safety concerns. But when it comes to nuisance concerns, things that annoy and upset neighbors and things like that, it's just very difficult for them to keep up because it's just too busy. And if we had someone who was an enforcement officer, we think that that's something the town is going to need in the near future. We understand that now is not the time to be adding new positions, but it's just something I wanted to give you all a heads up that we should sort of think about that for the future when we're in a position to do that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? There's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, John. No further discussion. Brad,
Yes.
Cody, David?
Yes.
I'm saying I wasn't here for the discussion.
Sure. Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Sonia's not here. Tom? I'm not sure if Thomas is Tom or not.
I'm
He's
sorry.
muted, but, oh, that's
Thank you,
fine.
Tom. And then chairman votes aye. 1201. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys. Good luck
Here's-
Thank you,
tonight.
Barbara.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, so the next one up is Board of Health at 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Tom and I spoke with the let me get to, the minutes here. Spoke to the Board of Health yesterday. There are so the budget is level funded, but you see lots of scary looking percentages on the salary line. We stepped through all of the step through it bit by bit to get a handle on it. So starting at fiscal year 21, their budget was cut. Well, they were able to get some savings by not backfilling a clerk's position. The clerk had retired about 4 months into the fiscal year, so they didn't backfill that position for 8 months. So that's how they absorbed the cut to their budget last year. As you may recall, at the last town meeting voted to add a half year of salary to for a new position, an associate director of public health, to help Susan Lunello out. So that bumped. So there was a step back in their budget, an increase in their budget, and then using that as the starting point, what you're going to see now is the increase in the part-time position is actually hiring someone for that clerk position for the upcoming year. And then you're also seeing the increase of the second half. So again, 6 months of that salary for the new position was already built into the budget. They've added in the second half of the salary, which explains that increase. So that reflects a 12.94 percentage increase overall to a budget of $670,554. Tom and I voted 2-0 to support.
Thanks, Brad. Hi, Susan. How are you? Do you want to add to Brad's description? And can you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. So I'm Susan Lunello, Director of Public Health. I think Brad just about covered everything. I really don't have anything to add unless Dr. Weiner has something to add. Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Weiner. Thanks, Susan. Questions, discussion?
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
I just was wondering if there's any developments on the plan for hiring the associate director position?
Susan or Dr. Weiner? You're muted.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wouldn't unmute. We posted the position in a number of different places, and interesting this evening, I am reviewing approximately 30 resumes that have come in, and I am looking at them along with my coach, along with my vice chair, David McSweeney, and my director, and we are looking at the first 30 resumes that have coming in, and that's what I'm going to be spending my evening tonight and tomorrow night doing, and to see where we are. So the question is great because today was a milestone. We received the first batch from HR.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. That's good news. Any other discussion? Not seeing any, the chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Roger,
Second.
Roger and John. Great. I did have one quick question, Brad. Did you cover the accommodated accounts separately?
We have votes on each. I assume we're doing three, unless you want to take them all at once.
Nope, we didn't discuss them. I'll do this first and then we'll do the accommodated ones separately.
Okay.
Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank. I mouthed the yes. John,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and yes from the chair, so that's 13 to 0. So the accommodated accounts, Brad.
Okay. Starting with hazardous waste. The department is making a request for the second year now of $50,000. We had a discussion. We noticed that actuals, both for last year and the year before, were much less. In fact, half as much as this $50,000 amount. Well, the explanation, at least for last year, is they only did one hazardous waste weekend. They normally have two. But the reason for sticking with the higher number is this is a new company. The company that had processed our hazardous waste for many years, I believe, went out of business or no longer does this particular function as part of their mission. So the town is going with a new vendor, and we really don't have a sense of where the costs were. So we're erring a little high just to make sure we can cover the cost. But again, that's in an amount of $50,000, and the subcommittee voted 2-0 to support.
Thanks, Brad. Does Susan or Dr. Weiner want to add anything to that?
It is not easy to find vendors now who take and work with and household hazardous material. There is still a huge need in our community. Just kind of interesting is that 30 years ago, when we first started Household Hazardous Waste Day, we were getting mostly motor oil. Now that this generation this new generation is not changing the oil in their cars anymore and going to Jiffy Lube and other places. We're not getting very much motor oil, but we are getting huge amounts of very atypical materials. First, because a lot of families, a lot of older people are leaving the community, and new people who come in are cleaning out their basements. And also, it's just a lot of junk out there that people are finding in their houses. I mentioned that some of the pesticides we're getting out of Burlington are 30, 40 years old.
Thanks. How was the participation rate in October when you ran it?
I don't have the numbers, but it was very busy. Susan, do you happen to have the numbers?
Yeah, it was about the same. So usually we run, over a little bit over 400. It was around that, about the same as we usually do. It wasn't any lower, wasn't any higher. I was thinking it was going to be higher because we didn't have the first one, but it was about the same amount of people.
Okay, thanks. When's the next one?
May 1st.
May 1st. Great, thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Phil.
how do we bid this, or is this on demand by volume? How exactly do we find this vendor?
They're on combis, so we look on the combis. So they do state contracts, and there's a limited amount of vendors that actually do this. I think now on combis there's probably 2 or 3 vendors. Some are really high on the really high end, and some are a little bit lower. So we go with the lowest amount on the state bid list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Any other questions? Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Roger. Thanks,
Second.
John. Okay, Brad,
Unmute. Yes.
thank you. Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Sonia,
Mr. Chairman, I just logged on, so I'll abstain from this one. I missed the discussion.
thank you. And then I'll vote yes, so 13-0. Next up is the mosquito control.
And if you look at your budget books or online, you'll see that the requested amount for mosquitoes tracks the actuals very closely. This year, the amount will be $44,846. Subcommittee voted 2-0 to support.
Thanks. Susan, Dr. Weiner, any further comment?
No, without mosquito control, we would have problems in Burlington. Not only do we have West Nile virus and Eastern equine encephalitis in the region, but also we've got a lot of mosquitoes. So we do helicopter spraying, and we also do truck-mounted spraying.
And this is level funded services, so we'll be getting the same services that we got last year. So there's no cut in services, even though it's been level funded.
Thank you.
Could I ask Steve?
Yeah, please, Frank.
This is Frank Monaco. How many, do we do just one application as needed applications? How much do we actually do? And the reason I'm asking is because I think even with, I know in my own area, a number of the neighbors are still hiring their own mosquito squad people because in fact our backyard is just totally unusable a lot of the time unless I do that.
So
Go ahead, Susan.
okay, so they do one helicopter aerial spraying over the Vine Brook swamp area, and then they set the traps in different areas of town to get the mosquito counts in certain areas. And if the mosquito count is high in one area, Then they'll send the truck out into certain neighborhoods where they do the truck mounted spraying. They also do the larvicides, the little dunks in the catch basins to kill the mosquito larvae. My understanding of the types of mosquitoes that we have, so we have the Culex pipiens, they live up in the tree canopies. So if you're spraying your bushes around your yard, that type of thing, you're probably not gonna get those mosquitoes because at dawn and dusk, or when it gets darker out, they come out, but during the day they're up in the tree canopies.
To follow up, do you know, so along Middlesex from, it's not, maybe it is the Vine Brook, in behind, well, in where Third Street begins, and then all the way up to Bedford, all along the sides of the turnpike, there's a lot of water. Is that area done?
So that's not the area for the helicopter spraying. The area for the helicopter spraying is more off Terrace Hall. If you go down Terrace Hall towards towards the Third Ave area, it's on the left-hand side. There's a big wetlands in there. That's where they do the helicopter spraying. We have gotten people who called us up in the past, especially the outdoor restaurants there, because they have patios and people are out in the patios and there's mosquito activity. If that happens, if people call our office, we can call the mosquito control and they can do extra truck mounted sprayings in certain areas if people report it to us, or they can even call the East Middlesex Mosquito Control Project on their own port areas that have higher mosquito activity, and they'll go out and do a spraying based on that.
They also evaluate West Nile virus and EEE in the population of mosquitoes that they trap. And if that number becomes positive, then they will spray the region where there is positivity.
How far out from that radius do they go?
From the radius of
Where they found the West Nile or the EE?
Oh, that would depend upon, they do these calculations. And I'm not sure how those calculations are done, Steve, so I'm really not sure. Susan, we have any idea?
No, I think they so they do like a pool testing of mosquitoes, and they also let us know. So if they have a mosquito that comes up with West Nile, they'll let us know. We let people know. I mean, the best thing that people can do in their own neighborhoods is to make sure they have no standing water on their property. So no buckets, no swimming pool covers that have standing water in it to prevent mosquitoes in your area, things like that, and also just protecting yourself when you go out. But as far as the radius of where they spray from the trapping locations, I think it's more just neighborhoods, and I don't know if they do an actual like radius type area.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mike.
just a question on the kind of the neighborhood spraying, and maybe that's the truck mounted spraying. Is that, I know what the objective is to kill mosquitoes, but is that dangerous for people that live in the neighborhoods, kids and so forth, in terms of the chemicals?
They use I think it's, I'm trying to think of the name. Is it pyrethrins?
Yes.
Pyrethrins, and that is a derivative of the chrysanthemum plant. So it is toxic to mosquitoes. A lot of people do not want their area sprayed, and we do send out a notice to the community. If you would like us not to spray your property, then you can sign up. And as they go through the neighborhood, they won't spray your trees. But as far as toxicity, I don't believe that is very toxic. Susan?
Yeah, so you can check out the East Middlesex Mosquito Control Project website, which gives all of the information on the spray, the chemicals that they are using. I believe that they're continuing to use the same. I don't think they've made any changes to what they use, and they have told us that that it is low toxicity.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Frank and Mike, you still have your hands up. Any other discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, an herbicide question actually for Dr. Weiner.
Go ahead.
Are they still spraying herbicide underneath the high tensions to reduce growth? And if they are we monitoring that, or are they cutting now?
We're not involved in that. I would have to, Susan, you could, I know what you're talking about. That's a great question, but I don't know the answer because it's not a Board of Health issue, but I know Susan knows about this.
Yeah, so they let us know when they're going to be doing it. There's nothing that we can do about that because we can't stop that from happening because it needs to be done so that it doesn't interfere with the providing electricity to the communities. But they do notice it to us, and we provide them with information on private wells and sensitive areas along where they're going to be spraying. So when it's going to be done, we get the notice, we let them know any sensitive areas along or adjacent to where they're going to be working and spraying.
That's a huge swath of land throughout the town, and I'm wondering what the toxicity levels have been all these years. They monitored that at all?
I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't
Yeah, I can
think
touch base with you later on that.
No, I think it's a great question, Phil, and I think we need to pursue it. Not only, we hear, that's something we need to pursue, see what they're doing the next time we're in contact with them. And now you've got me really intrigued. It's not something we control, so we've been kind of busy. But yeah, I think that's something we need to look into. I thank you for bringing that up. There's all.
We had argued with them years ago that they should be cutting and not doing this, but like Susan said, it was to no avail.
Yeah, no avail.
Susan, you look like you wanted to comment?
Oh, no,
Okay, good. Thank you.
Hey, Steve,
Phil, I'm interested now. Thank you for reminding us.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
quick comment. I noticed, Phil, over the last few years that they do a lot of cutting under the high tension wires, kind of down by the Burlington Reservoir area. They bring in these machines that just chew everything up. I haven't noticed spraying. I don't know how I would notice that. Maybe dead, shrubs and stuff. But there is a lot of cutting that happens.
the reservoir is one of those sensitive areas where they need to do the cutting rather than the spraying.
Okay,
So
that makes
that's
sense.
probably, why you're noticing it there.
Okay.
That probably makes sense. Any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sonia. Second?
Second.
I heard a couple of seconds. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
Mike,
Sorry, yes.
thank you. Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and the chair votes aye, 14-0. Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Dr. Weiner.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you for all your support over the years. We appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll move now on to the library, Department 610 and the 192 facilities. We'll take votes separately on those.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's quite a bit of discussion following all, as you see, there's lots of non-zero lines on the budget cover sheet here, but the short story is the budget's level funded, and all the increases you see are from negotiated contract settlements. I will point out that the budget had $25,000. The library budget had $25,000 decreased from FY21, and those dollars were taken out of the overtime line item. Overtime is typically spent, the majority of overtime is spent on weekend hours, and given the COVID situation, that didn't seem, and again, library employees volunteer for weekend duty to earn the overtime, and it wasn't that it was necessarily cutting into anyone's livelihood per se. So again, the overtime budget was cut down to 51. It's you see an increase to 54. They're keeping the same reduced hours. The percentage increase is just the fact that the contract increase is, the increase on this line item due to contract increases, and 1.5 times the increases for the normal work time. So, so there were some slight increases here and there on items on the contracted services, but they made that up by some, again, kind of in the noise, but some reductions on their materials and supplies. And I'm sure Mike will explain that if anybody has specific questions. But overall, they're doing a great job over there. They can tell you about how successful their curbside service has been, and just how highly used that service is. And it's all good. We voted, subcommittee voted 2-0 to support.
Thanks, Brad. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself and add some commentary?
Hi, I'm Michael Wick, the library director. I am noticing that I've got a little bit of shine to the top of my head now. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to show that off.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
So our budget, as Brad said, reduced $25,000 last September town meeting. Of course, that wasn't really an issue as we haven't had our weekend hours. We don't anticipate that being an issue for the remainder of the year. In fact, the $25,000 reduction that we have, we will be returning more money than that because there was a temporary hiring freeze that we had during us figuring out where the budget was going to be. And so, I anticipate that we'll actually be returning more than the $25,000 this year. The trustees have recognized, the need to continue the reduction in the budget. And so we are going to try and get those Sundays and summer Saturdays back for the next fiscal year when it's appropriate. So that those monies, that $25,000 would be from trustee discretionary accounts that they were looking to do that for this 1 year in order to help the town bridge that shortfall. And as Brad said, the reductions overall, there were some increases you might see in contracted services. Really, those increases were some new items that we had to take on. But then we made the reductions in other line items.
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I heard you, Sonia. Roger's got a question though.
I can second it, but then I got a question. In the cover sheet, there's mention of the requirement to spend a certain amount of 13%. And there's a comment that says you're going to try to make up something. The sentence, the library trustees will need to offset reductions. I didn't understand what that meant. Can you elaborate?
So Roger, we actually did the, I keyed off of that, and I thought I had computed a $21,000 shortfall on that, but I was explaining that there are extenuating circumstances as to that. So Mike, you want to dig into that?
Absolutely. So in order to be certified by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, we have to meet several different hurdles. The first hurdle is that we have to meet our municipal appropriation requirements. So what they do is they take our last 3 years of budgets, average them, and increase it by 2.5%. That we do no problem. Then in terms of further certification for state aid, we have to meet the requirement for hours for operating. And for our library, for the community of our size, that's currently 59 hours. If we operate at those 59 hours, then we have to have our text budget representing 13% of our budget. Now, what we do with our Sundays and summer Saturdays hours is that adds 4 hours to our 59 for 63 hours. That bumps us up into another level as if we were operating our hours at a higher residential rate. And so they allow us to drop down our text to 12% from that number. So what the trustees would be doing is they'll fund that shortfall in the hours, bumping us up into the 63, then we'll be at 90 or 100% compliance for our text. So rather than paying both, they only have to, increase the one.
Got it. Just makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a motion to approve from Sonia and a second from Roger. Okay, seeing none. Brad,
Yes.
Cody, David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil.
Abstain.
Thank you. Rob,
Abstain.
thank you. Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Sonia,
Yes.
and then myself. So that's 12-02. 192, Brad?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have the facilities line item for the library. I very cleverly failed to bring this up at the meeting with the library, but I've been doing this long enough to know that John Sanchez passes along formulas to the different departments, and the departments used John Sanchez's formula to come up with the occupancy. That number for the library this year is $95,943. There is no subcommittee recommendation, but again, there's not much to be said for this particular line item.
Thank you. Any questions?
Steve, this is Frank.
Go ahead, Frank.
I don't want to belabor this, Brad, or anybody, but on the occupancy. So what's going on here is some sort of apportionment to the departments for what they use. But in terms of actually paying the electric bills and the heating bills and whatnot, let's take the library. Who's actually getting billed and paying the bill?
We get the bill and we process the bill back to accounting.
I see. So is it, I assume that that's how that's working for all the departments? Like we're going to do rec next, which has a huge heating bill?
Well,
Same-
the reason why we do that for the library is, again, that when we look at our requirements for funding from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, if that money were a part of the library's operating budget, it would create a much higher level that we would have to increase annually for those numbers.
But we intentionally broke it out to avoid that unnecessary tithing, if you will.
Yeah.
I understand that, but so occupancy. So do you actually track your own utilization and determine that you're running things, as efficiently as you can, and then you go ahead and pay whatever you build?
So we get the bill, we do track it, but in terms of looking at efficiency and whatnot, that's all done through facilities.
Okay, thank you. That's good enough for now. It's a little confusing how this actually works, I think.
And again, Frank, what this is, again, we've been looking at this issue for many, many years before the trigger was actually pulled on separating the two. But if you look at libraries across the Commonwealth, it's a mixed bag. I mean, some libraries occupancy is part of their budget, and other towns occupancy is for all the budgets are centralized. So it's not like we're doing anything out of the mainstream.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with separating it out. There's a good reason to do that. That's fine. We should just move on, I think.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
I've got a question, but I have a feeling I should wait until we can talk to John Sanchez because I'm kind of curious why the increase. I mean, I know it's distributed and it's a percentage, et cetera, but I should wait and ask John.
So to follow that, Roger, that's really the point. Occupancy does represent, a significant part of the town's budget spread across a whole pile of departments. And I know that John's done, more than a good job on repairing, replacing, bringing in controls and whatnot. And we've really improved our efficiencies enormously throughout the town. But nonetheless, there's still a lot of money that's being spent, and it would be good to understand when it goes up, why it goes up. Is it the rates? Is it use? Is it something else? And we have no way to see that anymore.
But if I can follow up with another question to Michael, there were a number of enhancements in the library this past year. Can you briefly describe what they are? And I would have hoped they would have lowered this occupancy number, but apparently not yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that they really have anything that they can base it off of, which would, I guess, be dangerous in, making any kind of estimation for the future. But we did have new HVAC units replaced on the roof. And then throughout the building, the valve controls were changed from pneumatic to electronic. And that was done partially through a grant. As far as I understand it, I may be misspeaking since I didn't oversee the project. Again, John Sanchez and facilities would be able to speak more to that. We also received a library-wide lighting upgrade. So they replaced all of our lights with high-efficiency LED. And to my understanding, that was 100% paid for through a grant. So we have all new controls for most of the lights, motion sensor for some, or just wall activated for others. But the majority of them are motion sense lighting upgrades.
Thank you.
Thanks. Phil, did you have anything? You look like you might. No? Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Roger.
Second.
Thank you, John. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Abstain.
Rob, same.
Same.
Roger,
Yes.
Sonia,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and the chair votes aye, 1202. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you all. And to reiterate everyone else who spoke before me, thanks for all your support.
You're welcome. Okay, rec department.
Okay. So Sonia and I met with Brendan and David Norden to go over it. It's basically a level funded budget, both for rec and rec maintenance. Those have been combined. 1.69% overall increase due to contractual obligations, but otherwise they're going to be able to operate within their budget from last year. They've had quite a few cuts in programs this past year because of COVID. They have cut some part-time staff. They've getting by, but the concern, that we talked about this morning, our concern was as things open up, we don't know what post-COVID world's going to look like or when it's going to start. But even as a public health movement, we need to get people back out and active and involved in the community, and that's one of their big roles. And so they're kind of operating on a pretty tight staff now. So we need to really pay attention for next year and realize that we're going to need some staffing changes for next year. And they did kind of just say that they'll be asking for next year for an assistant director position. The amount of paperwork to keep up with all the regulations and to keep up with the number of programs that we offer has gotten overwhelming. So that was just a little bit of a heads up, and we need to be aware of that for fiscal year 23, if at all possible. Otherwise, level funded, and Brendan's here for questions, as is David.
And you said the vote was 2-0?
Yes, I'm sorry, 2-0.
Okay, thanks. Brendan and David, thank you for joining us. Do you want to give updates or additional commentary?
I think Doug did a great job. I'm willing to entertain a motion.
We'll start with questions.
Yeah, I'm joking. Yes, thank you. Doug did a nice job presenting. So some of our challenges through this last year, obviously, we are a service-oriented department. We're used to seeing hundreds of people through our doors every day, some of them multiple times as they take part in multiple programs. And that all came to a screeching halt, obviously, in March, early April. And, I have to plug our program staff now. They have been awarded or are going to receive an award from the Massachusetts Recreation and Park Association next week for their program outreach during the pandemic. Right away, our spring brochure had just been printed, 10,000 copies, and we weren't able to do anything with it. Everybody got it in their mailbox, but we weren't able to follow through with the in-person programming. And led by our program coordinator, Kelly Lehman, they quickly adapted and modified programs to offer them virtually, reimagined our special events, and when other departments were receiving guidance saying, oh, we can't operate and do this, we can't do that, not town departments, I'm talking about other recreation departments in the state. Our program staff looked at, all right, how are we going to operate? How are we going to do this? Not how are we not going to be able to do this? And I think you probably saw that they kept people engaged through social media content, through virtual programming, and as soon as possible, as the restrictions loosened a little in the summer, getting back to as much of a typical summer look as we could with the restrictions. And that continued into the fall. We did go to virtual programming for the winter, but we are going right back to in-person, modified programming in the spring. Some in-person, some hybrid where they can go online and do it, or in person, and then some virtual programming. So, our staff really didn't take a break. They went right into planning and how we could get this done. So we're very proud of them. I'm very happy to call them colleagues and to work with them. But going forward, through this, we've had lots of discussions on, what will, as Doug mentioned, post-COVID look like. We're encouraged by the amount of people that are out utilizing the parks, and we put signage throughout the parks and tried to keep it up to date as best as possible. But we think that people are putting a little more value on their leisure time, their free time, and will be utilizing the parks more going forward. So, and I think that you will see, a concerted effort on our staff going forward to make sure that the parks are in the best shape that they can be in, and that we may see some new creative facilities come out of this going forward as well. so that, those are our challenges. The programs, without having the typical amount of in-person programming, we did see a decrease in the amount of people inside. So, we expect that to pick back up. We get calls all the time. When are you going to do in-person programming again? The state says you could do this or this, but we have to be able to do it comfortably. So we do anticipate that coming back pretty quickly, especially with the vaccines out there, and we can get people vaccinated and kind of get rolling again, where we anticipate, kind of filling back up with programs.
Thank you.
Through that, our maintenance staff did a tremendous job as well, getting signage into the parks, sanitizing equipment once a week, making sure that they stayed on top of areas that had to be marked off, bleachers and so forth, benches and all of those type of amenities at facilities. Drinking fountains haven't been open for over a year, so.
Okay. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Brendan. I had a couple questions, please. First one was, I noticed you in the cover letter had mentioned a few different warrant articles that you hope to add. Have you had a chance to speak with Paul Sagarino and John Inizio as to where these fall under the health and safety guidelines, or I'm just wondering how likely these are to come through?
Yep, have not had specific targeted towards those warrant articles, but for the last month and a half, I've been asking, all right, are there going to be capital articles, warrant articles? And we did meet with capital budget last night. We have two that we prioritized. One has been, kind of pulled or pushed off for the last couple of years, and that is a sunshade on the playground at Wildwood Park. It's something that has been in our plans for, I'd say, 4 or 5 years now, and keeps falling backwards. That is a health and safety. We had someone, you may recall, 2 summers ago, get burned on the equipment. They sat down on the plastic that had been sitting outside all day, in the sun. And it's also something that's shown up in every survey, assessment. It showed up in our needs assessment that we did for the entire department, and as well as the open space and recreation plan, getting some kind of shade onto that playground, because it's a well-used playground, but people don't use it in the middle of the summer because there's no shade. It's too hot. So that is one. And another is a piece of equipment for our field maintenance program, which I've talked about, I think, the last 2 years, and we're seeing tremendous results on a number of our facilities, and we keep expanding that to new parks and athletic fields.
Okay.
So those are the 2 items.
Okay. And the second one is sort of an accounting question, I guess. If I recall correctly, you have some sort of revolving fund for programs where people are paying fees and then that's applied to the programs. Is that correct?
All of our programs are through the revolving account.
Okay.
There are some that are.
So I'm curious about the special accounts on these different trips and transportation and so on. Are those programs that don't have fees to cover those expenses, or I'm curious why those are split out?
Okay, those are split out because if we added transportation to the cost of some of the programs wouldn't be affordable for people. So the town does subsidize some of those for us, to the tune. I think our transportation, pardon me, I don't know it off the top of my head. I believe it's $15,000. So that is a lot of that is our therapeutic recreation program. So it's the program for people with a disability, whether cognitive or physical, and transportation. We do a lot of trips outside of the Parks and Recreation Department building, whether in town or in the area, in the region.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Frank and then Phil. Frank?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Steve. I really have one question and one sort of, can you give some advice, maybe even to Doug? Is there a plan to merge the rec maintenance facility with the DPW on track, and is there a timeline for that based on the new building? Does anyone know?
Are the staffs of the two departments merging?
No, the facility itself.
Yes. So I can answer that, Doug. If you're the facility is scheduled right now, as of yesterday, the second to third week in May, and the Parks and Recreation Department maintenance will occupy their section of the building, and then central maintenance will occupy their section of the building. So we're sharing the building with central maintenance. We have two separate buildings that are combined, and then the goal is to, or the plan is to start the DPW building right after that. So we will then share some of our garage space for DPW vehicles, and they will have a couple mobile trailers in our parking lot for their office and their staff.
So this spring, you would be gradually moving everything out of the Windmere facility down to the new building.
Correct.
What is the plan, if anything, on your end to vacate Windmere? You just take everything out, clean it out, and you're done?
So the building is going to continue to stand while the DPW is being built, because it's going to house the animal control officer is going to have it move their operation up there while the building's being built. And there is going to be some storage for DPW up there as well. And our staff, we may leave some things in that building for now. It's our busiest season.
Yeah.
May starts our busiest season. So we have the luxury of slowly moving out, where DPW has to be out of to Great Meadow so they can demolish, and so it's going to be some shared space for a while.
All right. So I'm not trying to get into your operational stuff. So knowing that timeline, so there are no incremental costs or, things that you need one-time events in order to start this transition, because you're moving everything out over that period of time, right? And so that's all covered?
The original plan was that, yeah, it was covered even in the cost of the building. Any changes in equipment, that all comes with the building cost. And
Okay.
at one point, I believe, if I remember right, even the demolition of whichever buildings are going to go away, that is also included in the project cost.
Okay, terrific. So we don't have to worry about that. Just a piece of advice, Brendan. I think this capital item for Sun and Shade that you're talking about, I think it's really important that you get together with somebody, with either John Denizio or Paul Sagarino, because in a few weeks we're going to be making decisions on free cash. And the only way you'll pay for that is with free cash. And so the only way you'll get it is if it's deemed to be pretty much a safety / emergency necessity thing, or it saves way more money than it costs. And I haven't seen that list yet, but I'd be willing to bet a lot there won't be much on it. So I've heard no discussion about this with them. You really need to get in touch with them, okay?
I have not had an in-depth discussion on the actual items. I have had discussion on requests. So I will continue that discussion.
Yeah, but anything that's a high priority need, you have to make sure that they've got all the information they need so that we can bring this back to committee to use free cash to pay for it. All right?
Yep.
Okay, that's great. And then a free paid public announcement. So anything that your folks have done to help out with programs, especially for younger clients in the community, do everything you can, because I think young people, children, there's been an enormous impact because of COVID, and the programs that you run are an offset to that, and they're really important. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
I have Phil and then Sonia, I guess.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions, Brendan. First of all, do you anticipate any FY21 unexpended funds going back to the general fund?
Yes, we do. I do anticipate some full-time salaries. We had a retirement, and we're going through the process of, posting internally and potential of promotions. So there will be some potential funds going back. It depends on, if there are promotions, their levels, and how that meets with the pay scale. So, but we do anticipate some going back, yes.
Thank you. Secondly, I saw the guys patching the Simons Park basketball court, and I know that's not going to be on your warrant articles for a while, but I'm wondering, is that something that the trust can take by itself, or is it something the trust can split with the town?
I think that the trust likes to split things with the town. So we're doing a repair right now, and it is on our capital plan for FY24, I believe.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Sonia and then Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to piggyback on top of what Frank said and let the committee know that the rec department, both the elected body and the management, have been talking. We talked about it this morning. They are keenly aware of, the numbers for the capital needs, and they've wisely kind of picked the things that either are a safety issue or something that's of need. And Frank, you're absolutely right. We talked about the importance of helping the community, because getting out will be important for them, especially after all of this. So they've been talking about that a lot. So, I know we don't need to talk about it in depth today, but just wanted to let everybody know that they are prepared to talk about that when the time comes for their capital items. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brendan, I'm just wondering, is there a target date for the baseball and softball kids to be able to use the fields?
So traditionally, it is when the grass breaks dormancy, and I know that's a great term to use, but it's, when the grass is deemed safe, when the roots are starting to grow, temperatures become regular for springtime. Information has gone out to the youth sports. It's going to be a difficult year because of this fall 2 season that the high school is going through. So their fall 2 season ends April 25th. Their spring season begins April 26th. So it's, in how they operate, they're going to take up probably a little more field space and a little more time than usual. So we're in the process of working with the youth sports groups right now. We think with the preliminary schedule we have for the spring sports for the high school, that all of our youth sports should be able to start on time. And each spring we give them time. We try to split it evenly amongst soccer, lacrosse, and even baseball time on the turf fields, on the 2 turf fields, to get out and get some preseason workouts in before the grass fields are open.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, I had one more thing. The other thing we talked about this morning is we had approved on capital expenditures in the past the resurfacing of the tennis court at Simons, and that was delayed to see what kind of what impact COVID was going to have on the budget and so forth. But they just opened the bids on that, and they came in under what was budgeted. So that's some money that should get freed up also, and kind of come back into the system. Is that right, Brendan?
That is correct.
That's good to hear. So Doug, we're voting on this as one line item, right? Both the maintenance and the department, correct? Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I'll entertain, David, did you want to say something?
I just want to say thank you for your time, guys. But real quick, we just the new maintenance facility is going to be finished, like Brendan had said, in a couple months. It's an unbelievable building. We were able to tour it a couple weeks ago. If they ever do a grand opening, I would suggest you guys go up and see it. It's probably one of the most special projects that the town has put forth, to see where our tax dollars are going on. It's a great building. It's going to be great for the town. Our maintenance facility, central maintenance in the DPW, but the project's is on time. It's really didn't get delayed that much, especially with COVID, so we're happy about that. But it's a beautiful building, and it's going to be great for the town. And to hop on what Brendan said about it, just to give you, we are looking for, not this year, but next year, to add a program assistant director. I know it's not a good time to ask for something like that. We're not asking, but we want to put it out there. Our staff has worked during COVID extremely hard, coming up with new ideas, new ways to meet with the residents of Burlington. Kelly Lehman has worked her butt off to come up with ways, and that's why the department got the award. Their staff really puts a lot of time and effort in. And like Frank had said, the youth and seniors coming out of COVID who have been home and not really being able to get the programs that we offer, to be in the buildings and exercises and everything. So they really try to do everything to and they're constantly coming up with new ways to get people involved. So I just want to give them a little, the department, the rec department, some notice of what they deserve. They've done a great job. And I thank you for your time.
I'm definitely looking forward to an open house and checking it out. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Sonia and Roger in second.
Rania?
All right, Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Sonia,
Yes.
Yes.
Chair votes aye, 14-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to reiterate what Dave said, and thank you for supporting the project, both projects, both new buildings. When we do have an open house, you will see it is quite the state-of-the-art building. So thank you for supporting that for the last 2 years, and thank you for supporting our budget again this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Take care. Did everyone get a chance to read the minutes? I know they were belated.
Yep.
Are there any discussions or proposed changes to them? Nothing, John?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Phil. I heard it.
Personally, John.
Don't give John a chance to think, please.
I'll second it, Roger.
Oh, thank you, Roger. No, actually, I had made a couple of corrections before sending them out, so I wanted to make sure John didn't get an opportunity this time.
They look fabulous.
Awesome, great. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug, Thank you. Frank,
Yes?
John,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Sonia.
Yes.
Thank you, Tom.
I think I have to abstain.
And I'll vote yes, so that's 1202. Awesome. So looking up on the agenda next week, we have the assessors, we have the treasurer collectors, which includes the 911 Middlesex retirement accommodated account, the pension reimbursement, and the health insurance. Those three are accommodated accounts. We'll be covering the central administration. So that includes the unemployment, Medicare, financial services and audit, and Opeb accounts. Those are all accommodated accounts. We'll have MIS on there with capital improvements. And then we have some, the building inspector, the expensive budget of sealer and weights and measures, veterans, and then disability access. We also will do the local transportation too.
All in one night, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, all in one night.
Bring a snack.
Yeah, bring it
Some
back.
extra time.
I'm assuming you can stay up that late, right?
I don't know.
Go ahead, David.
Mr. Chairman,
Again.
I will have some handouts for you tomorrow. We met with the administration on a lot of these, especially the accommodated accounts. I'll have some handouts for you tomorrow that maybe you can pass along to the entire committee for next week.
I can do that. I will, when I get them, I will pass them along right away, otherwise I'll forget.
Yeah, so to that end, for there's a lot in this. The point's well taken that that night is going to be packed. So when you get the info from Town Hall 1 that David will circulate, there's going to be quite a bit of information on how the health insurance was calculated out, the backup for it, discussion on the retirement funds, the pension, all that. Please look it over and have all the questions that you can think of ahead of time teed up. There's a lot of detail in this stuff, and I think the detail will only be important rather than just droning through it, is to make sure that everybody's clear on what state the programs are in. And the health insurance, the 32B, and the accommodated accounts themselves will touch on the Opeb funding as well for the budgeted aspect of it, not for anything we might do above and beyond. And I think where we're sitting right now is until we get a discussion on free cash, which will come in a few weeks, we're not going to talk about any super funding or additional funding of Opeb yet, just to let you know ahead of time. But the health insurance and all of these accommodated accounts are all in there. My overall feeling is that we're in good shape and doing surprisingly well, but trying to read it over ahead of time, okay?
Note taken, Frank.
Mr. Chairman, are we all aware that Chief Kent is retiring?
Yes, or at least I am. As someone who's a graduate of UMass and knows that he ran the UMass Police Department back when I was there. We have exchanged that commentary. I will miss his departure because he and I usually cross paths in the morning when he's out running. So he won't be there encouraging me going forward. So
Is there a date for that? The
end of
retirement?
fiscal year.
June.
Really?
Yeah,
What was that?
end of fiscal year.
Okay.
He's done a nice job. It's be a shame to lose him.
Yep.
Yep.
He'll be missed, that's for sure.
Yes. Best chief we've had in a long time.
True.
Yep. What year did he join Burlington?
I think it's 5 years ago.
5 years. It's got, I think it was a little longer because I
Longer
think
than that.
Yeah, he was Ways and Means. Since I joined Ways and Means 6 years ago, he was always the chief.
I
He
wrote,
sent me a note today. He said it was the best 5 years of his career. So
But there are a couple
22 years of the service weren't that great.
Which ones weren't too good?
so it was 11 years this week.
Was it 11? Maybe I misread it. I'm sure I did.
His first 6 years were rough, Phil.
Time flies when you're 70.
You might want to get those, you might want to get your glasses checked.
Okay, you want a shovel for that hole you're digging?
Frank, it'd have to be a multi-headed shovel.
I can see where this is going. The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Frank. Do I have a second?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you
Yeah.
next week.
All right, good to see everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Night.